It's with a heavy heart and deep sadness that we have gathered here today to remember Ambassador P.S. Raghavan, who was a distinguished fellow with the Vivekananda International Foundation. Before we start this meeting of remembrance, I'll request Praveen ji, who is a member of our trust, to start with a prayer.
We'll have 11 times Sri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, and then Shanti Mantra in remembrance of Ambassador P.S. Raghavanji, whom we are remembering in this prayer meeting. Shri Ram, Jaya Ram, Jaya Jaya Rama Om. Shri Rama Jaya Rama, 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 Jaya Jaya Rama Om. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Dhanyavad, Praveen ji. Everyone is familiar with Ambassador Raghavan and his profile, but I'll just read out a few lines. Ambassador Raghavan was chairman of National Security Advisory Board, I think almost for 8 or 9 years, the longest serving to my recollection. He, from 1979 to 2016, he held diplomatic positions in USSR, UK, Poland, South Africa, and Vietnam, and was India's ambassador to the Czech Republic, Ireland, and Russia. From 2000 to 2004, he was Joint Secretary in the Prime Minister's Office, dealing with foreign affairs, nuclear energy, space, defense, and national security. As Secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs during 2013 and 14, he was in charge of India's external economic relations and the administration, security, and e-governance departments. He founded and headed the Development Partnership Administration, which coordinates India's economic partnership with developing countries. After his retirement, we have had the honor of having him at the VIF as a distinguished fellow, and he was a constant mentor and guide to the VIF, and he contributed in many, many ways. Chairman of the VIF Trust, Shri Gurumurti Ji, has also sent his condolence messages and remembered him and his contribution to the nation. This brief CV does not really encapsulate Raghavan's personality or Raghavan's contribution, which are truly vast and truly valuable. To us and colleagues in the Foreign Service, Raghavan was, I think, almost like a go-to person for any advice that you needed, any information that you needed. Raghavan was very well connected. He knew the people on all sides, and he was also able to produce some great ideas and also consensus around them. That was his great quality. Raghavan, I remember, as a batchmate, of course, he was a very dear friend, although he was younger to me by a few years. But we never hesitated to go to him for any advice. Even when he was very young, even as a probationer, one could see the tremendous maturity that he had in him. And he could hold a discourse on almost any subject. I mean, Raghavan's one quality was that he was tremendously logical and rational. I mean, he would approach anything from first principles and reach a conclusion. He was very sharp, very intelligent, very well read. But none of these qualities he showed. It was, he was so easy to deal with him. And he was also, of course, a great friend. He was a great listener as well. He would listen to you and take ideas if it suited him, and he would develop them further. I mean, this ability to look at an idea and take it forward and develop it and constantly refine it, that was tremendous. I also remember Raghavan as a tremendously hardworking person. I mean, he could work 24/7 for days on end without showing it. Even when he was second secretary in Moscow, where he and I served together. I mean, the amount of work that he could do, and that's why people relied upon him. He was extremely trustworthy. And whether people were senior to him or junior to him, they approached him for help and advice without hesitation. So he was that kind of a personality. And as I said, that he never showed, he was actually more like a behind-the-scenes person, never abrasive, would never show really what he was capable of. But he was a very good mentor, not to me personally. I benefited so many times from his advice. But he was a mentor to many young people and his colleagues. And he was always thinking about India, of course, India as a security, foreign policy. And he was very objective, as I said, and he could be brutally critical also when it required, and that would not hold it back. He was a very good, with his pen. He wrote beautifully and very concisely, and occasionally he wrote in the newspapers, so you would be aware of his writings. He wrote several times for our VIF website, our books, and many other things. After his retirement, he 2016 to I think 2024, he was the chairperson of the NSAB, as I said. And during NSAB, I think one early assignment that he did was reforming the National Security Council Secretariat. And some of the work that he did was outstanding. So today we have a reformed NSCS. Raghavan's handiwork is very visible in that. The fact that National Security Council today has a recognition in the rules of business was his effort. And all national security advisors depended on him. In the early years of National Security Council Secretariat, when Satish Chandra was deputy NSA, yes, at that time, he was a great help in the formative years of the National Security Council Secretariat. We remember that very well. Of course, on very substantive issues like the nuclear doctrine, I think he made some significant contributions. On the space, he was also made some contribution. And I know that he was working on a draft document, national security strategy document. And we held several discussions informally here in the NSCS also. And he was also constantly engaged with these topics. He suddenly disappeared from, the communication kind of stopped or happened, reduced sometimes early this year. So once I called him after a little gap, then that's where I learned about his illness. He had cancer, which he battled for many months. And unfortunately, he could not survive. But during several conversations that I had during that period, I could see the strength of the character. Firstly, he would not talk much about his health. I think it's with very few people that he shared what was going on. Most people did not know that he had this disease. But even during that time, although his voice had weakened and he used to feel a little weak, etc., but he would talk about his dear subject, which is strategy, national security, foreign policy. He was very fond of discussing Russia, US relations. He had a very good, nuanced understanding of European Union. Of course, he was a man of many parts, so he knew practically all aspects of international relations. So in the last conversation I had with him maybe about a month ago, he said that, have you read this article, that article? And he wanted me to. We had stopped bothering him for our seminars, etc., because I knew what he was going through. So he said that keep sending me some interesting articles. Don't send me too many, but some interesting articles. So we were sharing a few things here and there. And I think almost that's the last time when I met him. He asked me to help some young startups, technology startups in Bangalore. They were approaching him for some help and help. He says, I can't now do that, but if you can talk to them and help them in some way or guide them. So I said, yeah, we'll do that. And he sent me that address also, but unfortunately I have not been able to get in touch with them. So that was Raghavan for me, but there are many people here who knew Raghavan very intimately, having worked with him in various capacities on different areas. And if these people want to share their remembrances, we'll be very happy. We will record this meeting and we'll share it with Barbara. Barbara has been a companion with him for a long time, and it was she in the last year or so who single-handedly looked after Barbara, and he was very appreciative of Barbara. When I asked her, how are you managing this? Do you need any help, etc.? There's Barbara who is doing all that. And he had two sons. I think both were there at when he passed away. One is in, I think, Ireland, and another is Sirish and Anish. So that's about Raghavan. So anybody who would like to share their remembrances, we're very happy to. Yeah. Please. The floor is open. Yes, Pawan.
Thank you, sir. I still remember, sir, my first day in the ministry when we as a batch came, and we were looked after by the then DS FSP, Mr. Raghavan, and from that very day, his accessibility and his kindness towards us juniors was amazing, and something which was difficult to replicate. I, of course, got to know him much more and better when he asked me to join PMO under his charge in 2002. And since then, for these last 23 years, he's been very much a mentor and a guide in every possible way. As you said, sir, he was the go-to person for anything, anytime. And he always had all the time in the world for us. I remember even in PMO, you talked about his capacity to work. It was absolutely unbelievable for us, as those so much junior to him, younger to him, his capacity for work. And in spite of that, whenever you would go, even if you go at 9 in the evening to his office to discuss some things, he was surrounded by files, papers, and how many things he's got on his mind. But he will sit and listen to you as if that's the only thing he has to do. That's the kind of comfort level he provided, and how he sort of took care, and as you said, was an amazing listener, apart from being, of course, phenomenally insightful, knowledgeable in areas way beyond his of domain, as it were. And I think one of his amazing qualities as a boss was his ability to absorb pressure. He took on everything that came at him from all sides and never passed it down at all. That was really a really special quality of his. I mean, there is so much to say about him in terms of the person but I think his qualities as a human being were really something amazing. Of course, his expertise in national security, as you said. I remember how difficult it was trying to implement the basic national security report. The efforts that he put into when we were trying to create the NTRO, then NTFO, then became NTRO as an organization. The different agencies having problems with it. How he would spend hours sitting, listening to people, coming out with alternatives, as you said, always being very approachable, reasonable, and rational all the time. So it's very difficult to, for even people who are just opposed to things, to argue with him beyond the point, because he made so much rational and logical sense. For me, of course, as I said, even though wherever I went on postings, I could always call him and seek his guidance. But it was even much more so when I was in Moscow as ambassador, where I would call him often and have long chats with him to seek his guidance and his understanding of things. And of course, to be honest, after I came back to Delhi and moved to NSCS, the best thing for me here was again the fact that he was here as chairman in NSAB and would come here every month. And apart from official meetings, he would insist that at least one evening I, sit and chat with him informally at the IIC and discuss a whole range of things. And I will cherish every moment of that, because he was just so willing to share and offer. And as you said, his understanding, knowledge, and insights into every aspect of work and life was something very special. I did have the opportunity to see him just over 2 weeks ago. I'd gone to see him. I realized how that things were not going well. And even on that occasion, even though I could see he was in immense pain, but he was completely out there wanting to talk about immediate concerns, asking how we're going to navigate these complexities that we are faced with. What are we doing with this? What are we doing with that? His mind was absolutely alert and always thinking about so many issues, as you said, his concern for where are we going on our national security strategy, what are we going to do, how are we going to deal with these issues. That stayed with him throughout. It's a real loss I would say not just for the service and the IFS family, but even for me personally as a mentor. And I'd just like to sort of convey my deep condolences. Mrs. Raghavan and he, I mean, it was quite something that, as you said, she was being alone, handed everything, and even small things, which we realized when I was there that they hadn't asked anyone to help. And I kept saying, I said, sir, please just pass these on to us. These kind of things we can take care of, and don't waste your time and energy on these things. But that's the kind of person he was, always self-effacing, not wanting to bother anyone with things, but always being there to help out. So I just stop there, but I just, really, really will be missing him. So.
Thank you, Pawan. Ambassador Satish Chandra. Please unmute.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes, sir, please.
Well, this is really something terrible, and one is deeply shocked and grieved. I think in his passing away, we have certainly in the service lost one of our finest. I'll say a few words about my own association with Mr. Raghavan. I unfortunately got to know him only at the fag end of my career, in my last assignment, as it were, in the NSCS. And he was at that time, then he was JSPMO. Prabhat Shukla was his predecessor at that time. And though one knew him only for 4 or 5 years, the interaction was intense in the sense that the NSCS was a fledgling entity in those days. And setting it up was not an easy exercise. And it was people like Raghavan who were of immense help in enabling a smooth establishment. There were many, many issues on which he was extremely helpful with very good advice. His maturity went far beyond his years as a joint secretary. And I think Pawan and Arvind have referred to some of that, but I would put it this way, that any particular issue, he could see all sides of it. He had really a 360-degree vision on each of the issues with which we were confronted, and there were many. You mentioned NTRO, that was very important one, it was one. But I think the area in which people don't realize it, and rightly, because they were not dealing with it and were not aware of it and should not have been aware of it, maybe, was the nuclear area. That was very new, it was brand new. In fact, just around the time that NSCS was set up, we went nuclear. The entire setup was largely the handiwork of a very few number of people, of whom Raghavan was a critical component. And the entire process that was done was in large measure also due to his inputs. He could see many things, some of the things that escaped one, he would point out, sir, what do you think of this aspect, which one may not have thought about at that point in time. And so each of these gaps that sometimes arose and are inevitable in a sense on occasion, Raghavan was there to ensure that the job was done as well as humanly was possible at that point in time. And this was nascent. We were all very new to this exercise. We had no hands-on experience in this area. But this was something which was a very major contribution. And I remember spending many hours in the PMO in his room, on matters nuclear. But it wasn't only matters nuclear. There were many other issues as well, where I actually used his office as my own. Because quite honestly, some of these issues were so sensitive that I did not want to even bring the papers to my own office on Parliament Street or Sardar Patel Bhavan, as it is known. So a lot of time was spent there, and though I knew him in a professional capacity for 4, maybe 5 years, the amount of time that was spent together was huge. And on that, it is on that basis that I think I have such great admiration for him, because he was a first-rate professional and an even higher quality. Most of us in the Foreign Service are good by virtue of having gotten there. But he had one other quality, which is rare amongst most of us. And that is, he never had, or I was never able to detect any personal agenda of this. There was zero. It was the national interest. It was what is right, what is wrong, how do we address it? And that's why it was a really professionally very satisfying to work with him. And he has, I think, left his mark in innumerable areas. I only saw one aspect of this on matters security in the NSCS. But there are others who have worked with him in various other spheres or various other issues who would probably testify to that. So his loss is a huge loss. It's a personal loss, because I was in touch with him also subsequently. As Arvind mentioned, he was involved in some of our meetings in the VIF, and one interacted with him occasionally. Couple of occasions we went out for lunch together. There were issues he wanted to discuss, some things I wanted to talk to him about. And I don't know what's happened. Maybe Arvind or Pawan or some of you may know. I think he was at one stage thinking of writing a book. At least that's what he had mentioned to me at one of our lunches together. And I don't know what happened, whether he actually got started on it or got through with it, but I lost track of it. But it's a terrible shock to me when I heard of this. I knew he was a little unwell. I felt that when I last saw him, which must have been about a year or year and a half ago. But I did not know it was this serious. And that's why when I heard of this a couple of days back, it did shake me. Because when you lose a good friend, it is painful. And this is what it is. I would be grateful if my condolences are conveyed to Barbara and to the other members of his family. I didn't know his children, but I did meet Barbara. I think it was on one or two occasions at a dinner somewhere. But otherwise, I did not know them. But Raghavan, of course, very sad, very sorry. Thank you.
I think not being of the diplomatic community, but belonging to strategic community in the VIF family, I can only say that Ambassador Raghavan went out of the way to interact with us. You see, I would say many a time, I almost forced him, but he was always willing to come to the VIF and not only participate in the meetings, but also write for us. And wherever he came in the different discussions, he brought to bear his own experience and also the reasonableness. I never found him overbearing. Actually, at one day, he was working on the Chief of Defense Staff concept, and that was supposed to be kept quite confidential. And I remember him coming at a very odd time. We were very willing to whatever we could contribute from the VIF. And he stayed with us, the director, me, and there were 2-3 more of us, a good about 3 to 4 hours. So whenever we asked him something, he always responded. And I'm very sorry, I didn't really know that he was so sick, because suddenly in one sort of at the beginning of the year, I was missing him because I sent him some email and then I wanted to speak to him. I got no response. It was at that time the director hinted that he was very sick. And I didn't even realize that in his sickness even, he had been coming, and then we didn't bother him. But it continued to rankle in mind that why is it that such wise people, such nice people, such deep people are snatched away by the Almighty at the time when they can give the maximum to the society, to the strategic community. And that's why one is feeling very, very sad for his departure, and also departure in pain, but pain born with so much of dignity, because we have people who have little, what do you call, even a headache, they talk so much about it. You're suffering from the 4th stage of cancer. And never once, I just recollect that whenever he came, he had to catch a plane, and we used to delay him almost till the time he could almost miss his plane. He never minded it. So my heartfelt condolences from my side, from the also on behalf of all the young scholars who had interacted with him, and the response he always gave, always willing, never in a rush. God bless him. May he continue, his soul rest in peace, and may he continue to, may his memory continue to linger so pleasantly in our minds. Thank you so much.
Tani. Venkatesh?
Sir, I think Ambassador Mukherjee was, he had asked for the floors. Sir, go ahead, sir.
So Ashok, I didn't notice that. I noticed yours first. It doesn't matter. You start, Venkat. Ashok will come to.
Sir, first of all, on this Shraddhanjali meeting for Ambassador Raghavan, I think we have lost a great nationalist, a great diplomat, and a great human being. And I think it's a loss to all of us in many, many ways. Of course, like Pawan, we belong to a younger generation than Ambassador Raghavan. But I worked with him just 3 months in the PMO. He was leaving for a posting and I had just joined the PMO. But it became the basis for a lifetime association, and I've been in touch with him regularly, continuously ever since. And there's so much that one has learned from him. But I think it is important, sir, at this time also to remember his contributions to the country. I think Ambassador Satish Chandra did mention it. I looked after the nuclear file once I joined the PMO, but I realized what extraordinary work had been done before that because of the great complexity of the relationship. And India had also restructured its relations with the United States, with China at that point of time. We were also engaging with Pakistan in a very difficult time. So his contributions as JSPMO were quite extraordinary. So the next thing I saw was both Pawan and I came later to Moscow, but his extraordinary contribution to the India-Russia relationship is there for all to see. Many of the projects that we do today were taken up by Ambassador Raghavan, and he had an extremely good sense of going forward. His contribution to DPA is there. I was not involved with that, but I think it changed how MEA gave aid outside. And sir, in the service, invariably everybody said that Ambassador Raghavan was the best director ever saw in a very, very long time. He was an administration with a human face. He had time for everyone. So as chairman of NSAP, he was involved with a very large number of issues, and how he could connect them. It was always a pleasure, a learning experience to listen to him, to see how he connected all the various dots. And I think that's a great skill. It comes from a lifetime experience of dealing with very complex issues. And I think in Ambassador Raghavan, he was quite extraordinary. So one personal anecdote I will say, he was highly respected, very highly respected. Prime Minister Vajpayee was visiting St. Petersburg. It was a G8 meeting. And Vajpayee ji had to meet one foreign minister, I don't remember the name of the country, at 10 o'clock. And Vajpayee ji had not slept well that night. So in the morning, 6 o'clock, he called up Raghavan in the hotel. And Raghavan ji, ये बताइए ये 10 o'clock meeting postpone कर दें या छोड़ दें? So Raghavan told him, sir, it is better to go through with that meeting. So when Prime Minister was taking a briefing meeting at 9 o'clock, he said, मेरा तो मन नहीं था मगर राजवन जी को मना कैसे करते? I mean, it was an extraordinary moment of confidence of the human relationship and the trust that he had, of course, with Mr. Mishra and with the Prime Minister. And I think that continued with Prime Minister Modi and the previous Prime Ministers that he did. He was extremely highly regarded everywhere. And, you know, as one person who has benefited by his association, I think we feel a very, very deep loss. I would like to convey my condolences to his family at this very difficult hour, and we wish they have the strength to take this at this very difficult time. So thank you.
Thank you, Venkat. Ambassador Ashok Mukherjee.
Thank you, Arvind. I was shocked. I rang you up when I heard the news because Raghavan and I have been colleagues and friends for 40 years. He and I were put into the hot seats in MEA when new ministers were brought into the cabinet in 1985-86. And that began bonding. And everything that's been said about Raghavan today was probably the reason why the system and the people in at least MEA and elsewhere later relied so much on him. People like us relied on him as a friend, and I owe to him the fact that I was introduced to the former Soviet Union and then Central Asia and so on, because he rang me up when I was in Washington and said that after Washington, I have to post you somewhere. Would you like to go to Tashkent? And I said, if you say so. And he said, yes, that is the place to be. And that's how I reached Central Asia, thanks to him. And when I look back on these last 30 years of whatever I know of Central Asia and the former Soviet Union, it is mainly due to his interest. He kept it up. He kept in touch. Even when we were outside that space, I was in London. He was in Poland. He was going to Ireland as ambassador, and we found time in London to talk about the Soviet Union and the former Soviet space. So he was a professional and he was a friend. And in my last stint in the ministry, I remember the initiative on the Development Partnership Administration, which was given to him to implement and conceptualize. And whatever we do today, and we are really proud of so much that is being done today, actually owes a lot to his contribution and his conceptualization of how India's friendships, especially with developing countries, especially in Africa, have turned out. And that is one of the legacies that he has left behind. For a while, he was India's special envoy to South Sudan, which was created as an independent country. I benefited from that because he used to come back to the ministry and tell us about his visits. And when I went to New York, South Sudan had joined as the newest member of the UN, and they relied a lot on us, and all that they expected from us was due to their interaction with Raghavan. So this is a legacy which will be difficult for anyone to really forget. But I'd like to conclude by conveying our condolences to Barbara, because we were neighbors in the newly built at that time ministry housing complex in Chanakyapuri. And I always remember how both of them used to walk in the evenings whenever he was free. And she was a real pillar of support to us as well in that complex. And as we have heard today from you and others, she continued to be the pillar of support for him even in his last days. So our condolences to her and to his two sons. And thank you for convening this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashok. Ambassador Rajiv Sikri.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you, Arvind, for convening this meeting. I don't want to repeat all that has been said, and I completely agree with the various accolades and remarks that have been made about Raghavan. I think he was one of the most outstanding officers of the Indian Foreign Service that I have come across, and we really miss him professionally, hugely. But, and I had occasion to deal with him professionally when I was additional secretary and then special secretary in MEA, and he was a JSPMO. And those were the years when I was handling our Look East policy and the whole initiative. There, extremely helpful and imaginative, and enabled us to get clearances and so forth, which would have not been possible. So he was an outstanding officer, no question about it. But I want to just say a few words about Raghavan as the person I knew. And that comes out of, I may be the only one, maybe a few others, who've had the privilege of being hosted by him at his residence twice. Once, Arvind, you would recall, we were together on our way back from Germany by car. You were with me, and we turned up late night, about 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock, at his home in Warsaw, and we were welcomed there. I can't forget that. The second time was in 2010, when he was in Ireland. And I had gone to Dublin for a meeting of the Trilateral Commission to which I had been invited. So the 2 or 3 days was there. And then he insisted, he said, no, you've come to Ireland, stay with me and, look around Ireland and so forth. So, so I spent 3 or 4 days as his guest and got to know him much better as a person. Got to know Barbara a little better. I knew her earlier because she was in the Indian Embassy in Poland, and I since I was dealing with Poland and also used to travel quite frequently from Moscow to Warsaw, I had gotten to know her in the embassy, and then spent 3 or 4 days there. His sons were there, and what a charming and hospitable couple. I think a lot of what Raghavan was, his personality and everything, Barbara played an enormous role in his life. And what a wonderful person. So I want to say that, and his boys, Anish and Shirish, I think his names. And of course, I was absolutely amazed by his extensive personal library. I don't know what has happened to that, but it was a fantastic collection that he had. So Raghavan, as a person, was very respectful, but also equally commanded respect. And he bore his scholarship and his brilliance very lightly on his shoulders. He was self-effacing, very clear in his views, clear-minded, and had dealt with people, in a very comforting manner. If there was a problem, you could rely on Raghavan to sort it out. If you wanted anything done from Brajesh Mishra or Atal Bihari Vajpayee, just tell Raghavan. He'd work it out. And that was so he was a fantastic colleague. Of course, he was much junior to me, but I respected and I respect hugely his professional dynamism, his professional capabilities. And I spoke to Barbara the day he passed away, and yeah, she's obviously trying to get over it, unsure of her own future. I think one of the boys is in Poland, the other in Ireland. But I'll always remember him with great fondness and respect, and best wishes to Barbara and the whole family. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Gulshan Rai. Unmute Gulshan.
Thanks very much. You all know Mr. Raghavan as a foreign service officer. And I am one of those who has known him when he was at the Indian Society, Bangalore. I used to go there for some of my PhD work, and through a common friend, we met. Of course, a couple of times I went to Bangalore there, and every time during the coffee break or something, we will say hello and we'll meet and sit down, discuss and sort out some of the issues which I was facing. Thereafter, I met him second time when we had a dinner at the Sagar Ratna in Delhi when he was going for a posting to Russia. And along with us, the Professor N. Balakrishnan of ISC was there with us. We had a long chat, long discussions there. And that was a meeting for almost went almost 1.5 hours, 2 hours. And his system clarity that became very known, because my interaction with the ISC was a different nature, and at the dinner at the different nature. And thereafter, we had short stint at the NSCS, where he came as a member, and then eventually became the chairman of the NSAB, when he was working out the restructuring of the NSCS. He used to often sit down and discuss with me what kind of a role cyber should have, NSCS and all those aspects. I clearly remember that I had some issues that time with the financial institution, particularly the regulators like RBI, and he put very, very in a categorical manner, crystal clear manner in those notifications. That's what I remembered that part of it. And thereafter, about a year ago, we met at the VIF, where he had come to attend some function there. And then he came to me while we were having a tea after the meeting. He came to me that we had to meet and sit down, and some discussions happened to happen there. And that's the last meeting I had with him, and the meeting could not take place. I surely agree that Mr. Raghavan was a very clear in his mind, what thinking in a very clear manner there, and forceful views also there. His arguments were very, very forceful, very structured and very rational there. I really miss him, because last time he said we'll sit down for a lunch and we'll discuss it. At the lunch, I really miss him, and I will ever miss him. His gentleness, his advice, his counseling, and his knowledge in the 360-degree knowledge in all other areas. May his soul rest in peace, and I deeply condole the family. Thank you very much.
Ambassador Diplomat.
Thank you, sir. I heard of the sad news on the telephone call that you made to me, sir. But 2 days before, Ajay Bisaria and I, we were in Tashkent for the Primakov readings, and there he was telling, and we were talking about it. In recent times, I've been in touch with him as a part of the Academic Advisory Council, of which he was chairman at IMUN. It's a Model United Nations international organization in Mumbai. And we used to meet regularly on that, and his contributions were immense. But my first memory of him is when he was in JSPMO, and I was posted in Moscow in the Press and Information Wing. And I came to know from the ORT director that they were invited to Pakistan to do a documentary on Kashmir, and that they were going to release it. And I went to him and I said, what will it take you to drop it and not carry out? Because Pakistanis used to invite and make all kinds of media outreach in the country. So with great difficulty, he agreed as only on one condition: if you give me a single interview, one-on-one interview with Prime Minister Vajpayee. So I went and talked to Ambassador. Ambassador told me Nirupma Rao was our DCM before, and so he said that to talk to Nirupma. So I just called her up. I said, ma'am, can we somehow take an interview with Prime Minister for him? She said, I can't deal with it. This has been decided that PM will not give one-on-one interviews to especially the visual media. And I was shocked. I said, look, he's such a great statesman with some remarkable, of course, he had some physical limitations and all. So she said, just talk to Mr. Raghavan. So I called him up and I started arguing with him. He said, no, the decision has been taken. Now it will be very difficult. Mr. Mishra will not agree. And we don't want to put him in front of something. I said, sir, whatever little bit I have known of Prime Minister Vajpayee, when he collects his thought, the pulse of wisdom comes out of it. I said, but please, I said, this is for the national cause. So I kept on pestering him and he said, okay, let me get back to you. And lo and behold, we got that interview, sir. And when Mr. Vajpayee was landing, this interview was being telecast across the whole of ex-Soviet Union and other countries, Russian-speaking countries at that time. Second time we met I had come on consultation duty from Libya. And he met me in the corridor. So he said, Anil, would you like to go to Minsk? So I said, sir, you've been in Russia. I've been in Russia. After Moscow, it looks like a district posting. Would you like me to go? He started laughing. He said, okay, I understand. And I got posted to Jordan, sir, later. So I fondly remember here in BIF and in the Academic Advisory Council of the IMUN very recently. But I was not aware that he was so sick, sir. Because he had this sense of humor, a way of ease, and wisely. So it was so nice to always talk to him, sit together, and listen to him on many of these issues. Clarity that he had was amazing. So I just hope, pray that he rests in peace, and my heartfelt condolences to the family, sir.
So my association with him started very late. I think it was only in 2014 or 2015 when I was the commandant of the Naval War College. And he came for a talk. He had retired at that time as an ex-ambassador of Russia. But he spoke with such amazing clarity that he was a permanent fixture in the War College year after year after that. So the 4 years I spent over there, he was there every year. So. And from there, when I moved to Wellington, he had come to Wellington as well. So. On a personal note, I think he was instrumental in my joining the NSCS as the AMA because I had at one time given him a paper on reorganization in shipyards, and he asked me to come to the NSAB and present that paper. And there, all the deputy NSAs were present, and then one thing led to the other, and I finally ended up joining the NSCS. So I owe him a lot in that respect. When I was a AMA, I was officiating as the AMA for some time, and that's the time when he took the lead for the national security strategies. And we had a series of meetings in which it was amazing to see the clarity he brought to the tables. I think the unique quality about him was that he was strong on praise and strong on criticism, but had the ability to deliver both with equal grace. With that, sir, God bless his soul. So I will really miss him.
Thank you. Tilak?
Thank you, Arvind. I've had the good fortune of working with Raghavan for 6 years in the NSAB. But I actually met him even before that. I had gone to Bangalore for a book discussion at the Bangalore International Center of my first book. And Raghavan was in conversation with me. I was skeptical. I was wondering whether he had read the book. I didn't know him at all. Because normally what happens is people who do book discussions don't read the book and they talk about themselves rather than about the book. I found Raghavan a very pleasant change because not only had they read the book, but he didn't try and push across his own viewpoints, but let me talk and let me explain what the book was about. I had the opportunity to do a second book discussion with him on my fourth book on the Pashtuns, again in Bangalore, at the Bangalore Literary Fest, again, which was a great experience. But it was really in the NSAB that I came to know Raghavan, and I realized what a towering intellect he was. The depth of his knowledge, the width of his knowledge, the maturity to put it all together, and yet be so low-key. In fact, if any one of you were attended the NSAB meetings, it was an amazing amalgam. We'll be talking about the space law and space policy, go on to semiconductors, talk about 5G rollout, talk about the legal system of the continental shelf, talk about water issue, technology, and somewhere in between would be Balochistan and the Pashtuns, and all in 2 hours. And the way Raghavan managed these conversations, and that's where I realized that apart from his intellect and his other qualities, he was a born leader. He could lead diverse people and give them all a sense that he was totally involved with what they were saying and what they were doing. In the end, I think if I were to sum him up, I would just say one line, that he probably was the finest Foreign Service officer that it has been my good fortune to know and to work with. I haven't come across a better Foreign Service officer than Raghavan, and I condolences to his family, and I wish them all the best. Thank you.
So thank you very much. Yes, I think somebody, yeah, Ruchita.
Thank you. Unlike all of you, I came to know him only around 2011-12 when he was the Special Envoy for Sudan, South Sudan. That was the time when I came to know him. What I can share is that he was always forthcoming to share information. I was a researcher at think tank at IDSA, and normally we didn't have bureaucrats really forthcoming in sharing information. So he was, in that sense, very forthcoming, always ready to tell us as to what the developments were. And the second time when I was in, conversation with him for a longer period was when he was the head of the DPA, when he initiated, since Africa was my area of research, and since about 40% of our lines of credit at that point of time, or our development assistance was with Africa. So there were a number of times when we had a discussion with him, and he was always ready to discuss and share as to what is the concept behind the setting up of DPA, which a lot of economists in India were also not very clear of. So I think his going away is a great loss for all of us. Thank you.
If there was no other hands, then we can bring it to a close now. Thank you very much. I think it's been good listening to all of you, and also learned about the different dimensions of that towering personality. We'll convey this to Barbara along with our condolences. So thank you very much for joining us. Namaskar.